Welcome to the Software People Stories. I'm Shiv.
I'm Chitra.
And I'm Gayatri.
We bring you interesting, untold stories of people
Associated with the creation
Or consumption of software-based solutions.
You'll hear stories of what worked,
and sometimes what didn't,
you will also hear very personal experiences.
and insights that would trigger your thoughts
And inspire you to do even greater things.
Before we jump into today's conversation, a special thanks to PM Power Consulting for encouraging and supporting this show right from the start. With over 1,000 person-years of collective experience, PM Power has helped many organizations, teams, and individuals chart out their own journeys of excellence and make progress. Thank you, PM Power. Now, let's move to today's episode. I'm in conversation with David G Ewing, the CEO of Motiv, spelt M-O-T-I-V. In this first part of the conversation, David talks about his initial days in Detroit where he grew up, about meeting the CEO of Oracle, Larry Ellison, and how that influenced some of his later decisions in choosing the areas of work. He also talks about how and why technology under the hood has to be invisible while focusing primarily on the user experience when building solutions. He touches upon using customer journey mapping as a technique to better understand customer experiences and the importance of the team being empathetic to customers when delivering solutions. Listen on. Hi, David. Welcome to the Software People Stories.
Thanks, Shiv. It's great to be here.
I did a little bit of reading about your background based on what I got, but I don't know if one episode or even two episodes would be sufficient to cover all the interesting things that are there on your websites. Okay, but still, I think it'll be good to start with a kind of self-introduction, and also what is your origin story as far as technology or software is concerned.
Yeah, so I grew up in Detroit, and we have this joke about my dad because my dad was an entrepreneur and a software entrepreneur in the 80s at that. And the joke is my mom used to tell us like, "Hey kids, there's your father." And I have this picture in my mind of this guy sitting at the dining room table with a green screen monitor and a big floppy drive, writing code. And that was my dad. And like most kids, I idolized my dad and still do. And I wanted to be just like him. So when other kids were playing with their Ataris and, playing Space Invaders and whatnot, I had the Atari 800, which had a keyboard. And so what I spent most of my childhood doing was typing in word for word the code in a book. And I'd type it into the computer just to see what it did because I had no idea what it was doing. And I learned computer coding in my fourth and fifth grade or third grade. I can't remember because I just typed in the programs and pressed the run key and was like, what does this do? And then I would have this wonder of like, wow, that's really cool. So that's my start. It really comes down to my dad being a software entrepreneur and then me being a software entrepreneur.
Wonderful. Actually, early 80s, I was in Detroit for a few months during the winter.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, if you happen to come across CAD Master in Ann Arbor, that would have been my dad. So yeah, he was that was him.
Ah, nice. I was there with Burroughs.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay.
And what'd you think of Detroit in the winter?
It was a wonderful experience for me.
Oh, sure. Yeah, Detroit in the 80s in the winter. It's wonderful.
At least at the one thing I still remember is that we went to the Renaissance Center and
yes.
ice skate and I kept falling. And so all my colleagues, when I was coming back, gave me a small Smurf with a skateboard which can't really stand, it'll always keep falling. So I have fond memories of Detroit anyway. Yeah.
Nice. Well, that sounds like fun. Good times.
Yeah. Okay. So you got exposed to computers, but then when did you choose to make that your career?
Well, from there I went through the traditional arc, right? I took computer programming in middle school and in high school, and then in college is where I really got deep. That's when I started doing the all-nighters and really loving it. Like this is the days before Red Bull, so I can remember popping no-dose pills and then staying in the computer lab from all the way till sunrise the next day, and coming out bleary-eyed and having fun. But one of the interesting things that happened to me is I did that. Must have been about 20 years old, and I was coming out of the science center one morning, still on no-dose, and my teaching assistant came back the other way, and I said, "Hey, what's up?" And she said, "Hey, do you want to meet Larry Ellison?" And I was like, "Who the hell is Larry Ellison?" And she said, "Come on with me. You're about to find out." So we go to the science center, and Larry Ellison, the CEO of Oracle, pops out and starts foaming at the mouth about Windows 95 and all his diatribes about Microsoft and talking about Oracle. And it was really interesting. And I was so impressed because the guy was on fire. I mean, he was just this larger than life human being. And what was really great was the PhDs in the audience would start to ask him technical questions, right? Like, hey, in your database, if you try to do X, Y, and Z, and at that point it was way over my head. I had no idea what they were talking about. But Larry would fire back with, well, have you tried this? And he would catch people and they would be like, no, I haven't tried that yet. And he's like, well, that's your answer. So it was impressive to see someone who is a technical executive who just had all of that. And I found a new hero that day. I know there's a lot of things about Larry Ellison that are not heroic, fine. But in that moment, in that context, at 20 years old, knowing nothing else, I was starstruck, and that really kind of put me on a path because 5 years later, here I was, an entrepreneur running my business, and an opportunity came up for me to partner with Oracle, and I took it, and I haven't looked back, and so that was kind of really what pushed us towards the path of being a company who partnered with Oracle and extended Oracle software. And a lot of my software and entrepreneurial experience and technology has really bent towards how do you take Oracle technology and do all sorts of different, cool, interesting things with it that generate, return on investment. And that's been fun.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting story. Uh, then when you talked about all-nighters and not doing a lot of programming, uh, what kind of solutions were you building at that time?
So my 90s education is not impressive to today's modern audience, right? So it wasn't even Java. I hate to admit it. It was, C plus plus, and it was and C even, not even C plus plus. So it was hardcore, old school. I was kind of the last of that generation because really I am like kind of the last of the Generation X kind of people, right? And I define Generation X versus Generation Y is, did you grow up with the internet in high school? I did not have internet in high school. So if I had to ask a girl out on a date, I had to do the super awkward thing of picking up a corded phone and calling and hoping like hell her dad wouldn't be on the other end, right? And be like, oh God, don't make this awkward, and wait for the girl to pick up, right? My sister is not in my same generation. My sister is 6 years younger than me. She is definitely a Gen Y or whatever you want to call it, the next one, because, she and people would email each other for dates. And that's a totally less heroic, less courageous experience than having to make that super awkward phone call. So there's the dividing line. I'm the last of the Xers. And I think that's yeah, so I get C and C plus plus and not and not the cool stuff.
Yeah.
I had to learn that later.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So the reason for my question was the emphasis on the user experience when you say the Oracle CX and stuff like that. When did you uh, start appreciating that user experience is a thing and that's important and all those kinds of things?
Oh yeah, that's a great line of questioning because the 1980s is when I experienced that because when you don't have customer experience, you certainly can feel it, right? Like UI UX experience when you're a kid and you're like trying to figure stuff out by trial and error, teaches you that it's really great when you can make things sing, and so if, in the arc of my career from being a child to now is, now, I mean, we have just so many things that are so intuitive that it really for people that are coming into it fresh right now, they wouldn't appreciate just how natural and intuitive everything is. I mean, you get on ChatGPT, you need no training to be able to use it, right? I mean, you just start typing and talking to it, and it's like, to me, it still feels like the future. But that is totally different than how things have been. And so, I really feel like the Generation X developers, technologists, coders, we're all about this pivot point, right? We were the most tech detailed group because we were there when it was simple enough that you could understand the guts of what was happening intuitively. And now we have, rolled forward into encapsulating all of that into a nice fluffy layer that is really intuitive. And I think having lived with that pain, it makes it that it's got to be that way, right? And it's got to be even better. And to me, I always go with the mantra that the best technology is invisible. When you think about it, how much better is it to go to a meeting with someone and to just pull out a simple tablet, put it on the phone, on the desktop, like a Remarkable or an iPad or whatever, and just have that back and forth conversation with someone, as opposed to coming in with your laptop and just, sticking it right in front of someone's face. And now there's this, almost like this energy barrier between you and the other person. It's not natural. And, it's things like that. That's what makes technology great, is when technology becomes invisible. And the more invisible it is, the better it is. And I think that's really where I try to drive with customer experience.
But then I'm probably making some assumptions here that when you help your customers implement the Oracle Suite or from an Oracle customer experience perspective, it's also about understanding their customers, right? And how they would like to have their customer journeys mapped or handled. So how do you understand that? And the second part of the question is, it's not something that only you do, since your entire team does it. How do you inculcate this empathy for your customer and your customers' customers?
That's great. And yes, we're going a couple levels deep, and I love that, Shiv. So let's start with yes. When somebody hires Motiv, we come in and we are right alongside Oracle technology, and we'll work for a company that is trying to delight and provide wonder to its customers. So yes, our customer's customer is what it's all about, right? And everybody's committed to, how do we make things wonderful and magical for them? So the journey, as a lot of people mention it, and journey mapping tools. There's a bunch of tools that you can use to begin to do this. But here's the gold standard that you really need to think about when you're doing this analysis, and that is, you're looking for the emotional connection points, because it doesn't matter to a customer that you have served 10,000 people just like them. Who cares? It's not for them. It's not about the 9,999 other people going through their experience. It's about their experience. It's about what has happening for them. I'll give you two quick stories about that. One is, we worked several years ago, and this is a public case study, so I can talk about it. And I can't talk about all my stuff, but I can talk about this one. Johnson & Johnson has a division called LifeScan, okay? And they make blood glucose monitors. And, the thing is those are for people with diabetes. And so there's two kinds of diabetes. There's people who are born with diabetes. It's type 1. There's type 2, which is adult onset diabetes. And we wanted to do something for people who had type 2 onset diabetes. And so we really understood their experience. And it looks something like this. You're not feeling very well. You go to the doctor. You don't know what's wrong. You're a little worried. The doctor sits you down and goes, we ran the tests, and I'm sorry, you have type 2 diabetes. And that's not changeable. Like, you now have type 2 diabetes for the rest of your life. That is a hard message and a hard moment. I mean, you want to talk about a loss of control and feeling like the world is going beyond you. And it is a devastating moment. And so Johnson & Johnson's sitting there going, well, how do we create a customer experience that provides hope and brings things back? And so we came up with this idea, and it was their idea, and we helped them implement it, called Best Days. And it was, Best Days was like, hey, your best days are ahead of you. They're not behind you. You have not lost control of your life because you have type 2 diabetes. You just have a new challenge. And so we really created a journey around helping someone deal with the fact that they now had type 2 diabetes and their life was still in their control. They could win this back, but they had to do a series of steps. And so we timed a campaign so that the minute someone registered for our stuff, we just started to spoon feed them little bits of information every day, every other day. And over a course of time, it was very personalized, whether you were male or female, whether you were young or old, whether you were single or married. We gave you a different journey with different information. So, by day 30, if you were a young woman who got adult onset type 2 diabetes, you were getting articles about how to go on a date and stick yourself with a needle in the bathroom so that you didn't look like a drug user in front of your, your new date. That was some of the tips that we had was stuff like that. And so, those kinds of experiences are what is really what it's all about, because emotionally, at the end of the day, look, Johnson Johnson's a company, right? LiveScan's a company. They want to sell blood glucose meters. They want to sell strips. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. It's a great product. But what they wanted to do was they wanted to help people, and they wanted to create an emotional connection to help someone change and transform their life. And they knew their product could do it. It was a part of the solution, and they just thought a little bit bigger about what that customer wanted. And that emotional bond was ultimately what they wanted to forge. And it was a phenomenal success, and that's really the big thinking that I get excited about and think, wow, how cool is that? I'll tell you another quick one is every time I do customer journey mapping with someone, and I'm like, let's talk about your customer journey map. And I always ask people, hey, can you think of a time when a company was really awesome to you, like a great experience you had, like something magic, something wonderful? And I swear that in at least half of the meetings I go to, if maybe more, someone raises their hand, and with tears in their eyes, they will tell me about their favorite pet, right? The dog that they had. I have a dog, by the way. He's in the next room. He's not allowed in right now. But, and how when that dog passed away, that cat passed away, they got a card and flowers from Chewy.com, because Chewy, without getting any kind of report, realized that the elderly dog food that they'd been selling this person, the orders were canceled or stopped. And they know what that means, right? And they decided to do something about it. And I'll tell you what, like that emotional thoughtfulness of just doing something like that. And think about it, that's someone who's not your customer anymore, right? Like they're done being your customer, at least for that animal. But look at what you're getting, right? Like you're creating this magic moment. You're building this bond for life with this person, and you know that they're likely to have another pet. So yes, selfishly in your business, they're buying Chewy dog food when they come back, and so, I just think that those are the customer experience moments that are so exciting and really drive people towards doing something good. And it makes everybody that's our client feel proud that they can make someone's day brighter, and they can do it at scale. They can not just do this for one person, they can do this for thousands of people all at once. And that is just so cool. And that's really what, to me, gets me excited about customer experience.
Yeah. So how do you inculcate this empathy for customers in your team? I'm again assuming that now you may not have time to spend as much time with each of your engagements, right?
Well, Shiv, that's a great question. And yes, you did ask that earlier. Sorry, I forgot to answer that part of the question. But yeah, so how do you get a whole team of people to do this? Well, first off, there's a few things that you have to recognize. One is one thing that in moments of frustration, when I'm like, my gosh, things aren't going well, there's always something I go back to, which is nobody on my team woke up this morning and said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to mail it in. I'm going to go half heart today. Like, I'm just not going to try very hard. That said no one on my team ever, right? And probably not on your team or very few. There are very few people, and they don't last in a job very long if they're like, I'm just going to give 50% today. I'm gonna slide on by, right? Especially in a small business, it's hard to do that. However, when you're leading a team, it's easy for you to imagine that that's what's happening, and it almost never is. Now, that is what I call the intent, right? Like that is the person's intent. The person gets up, every employee of mine gets up every day and intends to do well. The reality is, though, is that not all of us actually wind up doing well, right? That's impact. So there's intent and there's impact. Everybody intends to do well, but did they do well? And one of my favorite stories is there's a baseball player, famous baseball player for the Texas Rangers, and he was an all-star and an outfielder. His name was Josh Hamilton. And one day Josh is going back on the backfield and he reaches up for the ball and he doesn't catch it. And he comes back to the dugout And the coach says, "Hey, Josh, catch the ball, man." And he's like, "Yeah, I really tried hard." And coach goes, "Hey, I can get somebody from the stands to try really hard. You're here because you catch the ball, like that's intent versus impact." So getting back to your original question, when you are thinking about trying to get your team to do something like this, believe they have the intent, trust that they do. That's what where I start. But they need the tools, right? They need to know how to turn that intent into impact. And so what we do a lot at Motiv is really make sure that we have a series of journey mapping tools and trainings and exercises and dry runs and practice and a lot of mentoring that we do to bring that in and make that systemic. Because just like, if you think about it, we're now 3 layers deep, right? There's the customer who's experienced this delightful experience. There's our client who has the systems and software that we configure. And then there's our consultants. And you know what? Our consultants drive purpose and meaning because of the result they're able to have. It doesn't matter that it's not their customer directly. It's even sometimes better that they can see for our client how it affects their customers, and they can see the 10,000 impacts a day that happen when you really get this right, and the magic is there. So culturally, we do some things like internally every Friday we get together at Motiv and we talk about the customer compliments that we got this week and the great case studies and innovations and go lives and wins. And then our core values really reflect all of this as well. So one of my favorite core values that we have is acorns to oaks, which is the simple idea, right? Every acorn has the potential to become an oak. And when you're working with customer experience systems, it's not just about putting one smile on one person's face. It's about putting on 10,000 smiles. And so the acorn to oak, core value is really about that, right? When we can hit that for our customers, it's awesome. And it really makes us happy.
Wonderful. This partnership with Oracle, you said, started when Larry Ellison became your hero. And to sustain something like that, and you said you're a small business and working with a large corporation, how does the equation work out? And then how have you been able to sustain that partnership?
Well, here's the thing is that, trying to be relevant to a $54 billion company is a challenge, right? Motiv's not $54 billion. In fact, you have to take off a lot of zeros before you get to the science of where Motiv is at. And so the thing is that, we have to be strategic for Oracle. And, case in point, if we can help Oracle win a new customer, like we did this a couple years ago, we helped them win a utility that was really kind of in the camp of other software companies, didn't really try Oracle products, but decided to try Oracle products because of Motiv. Well, our call it like $500,000 software engagement, turned into over years a relationship that Oracle built with all the rest of their technology. It has nothing to do with customer experience. It's, 20, 30, $40 million a year in revenue for them with that customer. Now that's to Oracle a meaningful number, and they're excited about that. But it's important to remind them that they're only in there getting those much larger contracts with much larger, things and kind of their deeper tech, because they got to start and it's another acorn to oak story. So really Motiv is like the beachhead that holds the ground with a new customer, and we do a lot of new customer acquisition with them. So that's really where our value comes in. And so because we're so deep and so specialized in customer experience, and because the stories that show up if we do our job well, can really bring that sense of wonder, magic, and affect our client's customer, it really begins to push that snowball downhill, if you will, for them. And that's really where the partnership comes in. But I will tell you, it's very easy for them to lose sight of us, right? Out of sight, out of mind. If we're not constantly in front of them, talking to them, reminding them about what we're doing, then it's very easy to see that things will trail off with them in a heartbeat. There's a lot of turnover there, so there's not that much institutional memory. And so those are challenges and problems that we face all the time. And so we're constantly educating new people at a large company about why they should care about, Motiv.
Now, everybody talks about AI. Right? And some of the stories that you shared just now is also about understanding the data, the context, and then being more probably responsive to customers. Probably long before this buzz about AI started happening. How do you think some of these AI or AI-enabled, AI-enhanced, now everything has to have an AI somewhere, going to impact the customer experience?
I asked him about how he thinks some of the AI-based approaches are likely to impact the customer experience. The answer to that question and a lot more in the next part of our conversation. Don't miss it.
We thank Siddharth for the music and Anita for promoting the Software People Stories.
If you like this episode,
Please subscribe on your favorite podcast client.
And spread the word in your network.
if you'd like to share your story,
Contact us at podcasts@pm-powerconsulting.com.